Okay, Black Bag just showed up on Peacock, and Black Bag was a January film that appeared earlier this year in theaters. It was getting really good reviews, and so I decided to watch it, and I have to admit, I like the film. Here's the thing that kind of drew me off of this film, and I will have to say, when I started watching it the first time, I basically had to turn it off because I realized I couldn't do the work that I normally do, where I write content for my articles and my other stuff that I do for my channel, and watch this film at the same time. There's a lot of shows you can watch while doing other things, and I think now we have content like that, and it's now really given to us, especially if it's content that we've seen before. But sometimes it's cases where I watch shows where it's like I discover some great stuff. In the case of Black Bag, I felt like I had to just sit and just watch this, so that's what I did. Last weekend, I just basically sat and I watched this hour-and-a-half film, and I couldn't believe it was that short. Normally that time is reserved for comedies and not films that are like this, which I would have to classify as drama spy thriller. Also romance. And I'm going to get into the plot of this film here. Now, this is a Steven Soderbergh film. I think I might be pronouncing that correctly, maybe. He's most famously known for the Ocean's 11 franchise. I don't know if he did like all of them, because I have to admit, oh shoot, Ocean's 8 probably counts on that, doesn't it? I don't know if he did Ocean's 8, and honestly, I didn't like Ocean's 8, and I've tried to watch Ocean's 13 like at least twice, and I just never want to get into it. I don't know what it is about that. That really killed the thing. Ocean's 11 and 12 I think are great films, but when it comes to that, anyway, so you know that Steven Soderbergh has this kind of style in his films, and he's very good at it. And Ocean's 11 had a very complex plot, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that were really spoon-fed to you during the thing. Black Bag is not spoon-fed to you. Black Bag sort of counts on you sort of following along on this here. And this is one of those films in which, like, okay, after I watched it, I said, like, okay, did I see what I thought I saw on this thing? In some cases, you can't really deny that you saw what you saw. But in some cases, you have to go like, okay, why did that happen? You can't just have something in a movie happen because it happens. There has to be a very good explanation. And I believe Black Bag is pretty airtight in what it's trying to do as far as its plot goes. So, here's the thing. This starts out with, I can't remember the main character's name, but he's played by Michael Fassbender. Michael Fassbender's attempt to play this character is really strange. This character is very much emotionally detached. He doesn't really show much emotion and stuff like that. And you can tell that he's in the spy business because that's what he's in. He's in the intelligence community because he's good at his job. He's good at finding out people who are keeping secrets and exposing them. In fact, actually, it's revealed in like a very early scene that his father was cheating on his mother, and he figured this out and exposed the lie, and he was like 37 years old when this happened. Not the father, but Michael Fassbender's character was. And I kind of thought like, okay, that feels kind of, I don't know, I didn't even know how to feel when I heard that. I was going like, okay, this is a guy who's a bit too dedicated to finding the truth. A lot of us at 37 probably would have just ignored that and just simply gone on with our lives, I guess. But the fact that this has it shows that there's a pretty interesting backstory here. Now, this is one of those films that starts out with its premise right from the get-go, and I think really works. Actually, it starts out with this great opening shot where we're following Michael Fassbender's character through all sorts of things. And this is one of those times in which, like, you know how some movies have great opening shots? Black Bag is now one of them. I like the opening shot of this. So Michael Fassbender meets with one of his intelligence cohorts who says, like, okay, there's a leak in our agency somewhere, and there's 5 people on the list who we think are the leak, and your wife is one of them. Now, to me, that's a trailer line. That's something you put on the trailer to, like, immediately introduce you. I mean, you know how you have certain films that have a premise that's like the moment you hear it, you go like, oh, I want to see what that's about. Black Bag is that with that sentence. So, here's the thing. That evening, Michael Fassbender has all those other people on the list, including his wife, over for dinner. And what happens then is a very intriguing scene because This is a film that is extremely dialogue heavy. This is a film in which like a lot of the action isn't like fist fights or anything like that, but it involves like a lot of people in a room just talking and stuff like that. Now, these films are really hard to write, and they are even harder to direct because you have to do it in such a way where it feels like you're not trying to make it not boring, but the dialogue has to be so engaging that even if you just put a camera there and just had the characters talk, you would still be enthralled by it. In this case, I kind of went like, they had this odd setup where it was like, these characters were like saying like, Michael Fassbender says like, okay, say a resolution you want the character to have on the, say a resolution you want the person on your right to have. A very odd setup, but it kind of works. As it turns out, one of the characters knows about a certain infidelity and basically confronts him there, and this results into this character getting essentially crucified with a knife, and that's weird. I just was very surprised that this film kind of went that direction from the get-go. And then we kind of see that this Michael Fassbender, who's trying to investigate this, and he believes that it's probably his wife who's doing this. He finds out, he actually spies on his wife, goes on her computer and finds out that she's meeting some guy in Zurich. And yeah, and there's, you know, something up. She's got a bank account and she thinks, okay, maybe she's taking money to do this leak. Now the leak is something that's rather unusual. And they actually kind of reveal this MacGuffin device and what it is. But apparently there's a program called Severus, not to be confused with the show Severance, which I've also talked about. But essentially, Severus is this computer virus that allows, that can go into, say, a nuclear reactor, and if it's allowed in the programming, it will melt down that nuclear reactor. Now, it was something that the British intelligence were experimenting with, because, by the way, this takes place in Britain, sorry. And, oh yeah, and by the way, Pierce Brosnan's in this film. Yeah, I know, a former James Bond being in a film, and he plays like, and he's like delivering the exposition about what Severus was. Apparently they developed it to make sure that like, to see if it was actually a doable thing and that if someone were to actually get a hold of it. But then, unfortunately in the process, somehow that Severus virus that they had leaked out. And so they fear that there's going to be some terrorists that are going to melt down a Russian nuclear reactor and cause a great global chaos with that. So, it gets really complicated from there, and this isn't one of those films where I'm going to go into heavy spoilers, because I usually do that around the 9-minute mark. I'm not going to do that now because honestly, I don't really know what happened. No, just kidding. I mean, I know who eventually leaked it, and I know why they did it. The issue is there are a lot of factors that play into how that worked, and there's a lot of factors that play into, like, this is one of those films in which, like, it seems like this person is set up to be the obvious person who did it, but then it turns out by the end of the film they're utterly exonerated of it, had nothing to do with any of it, and that's just kind of it. What I believe this film is trying to say is to show that in the intelligence community, it doesn't really make sense for people who are very connected to each other, like Michael Fassbender and his wife, who's played by Cate Blanchett, and I can't believe that's the first time I've actually mentioned this, for them to work together because stuff is going to come in the way. So they have, now the term black bag comes from a code that they use. Say, for example, like in a situation like this where, like if they say like, hey honey, where were you last night? They can just say black bag, you know, I was involved in something and I'm not allowed to talk about it because the job does not permit me to talk about this at home. Which is a very good, you know, work ethic to have. This is kind of weird. Actually, this is a lot like Severance in that way, now that I think about it. Anyway, this idea that this shouldn't mix and stuff like that, and yet it does. And I kind of felt like this feels very unprofessional. And I went like, is this really how the intelligence community operates? And I got the feeling like, yeah, I get the feeling like there's always going to be this kind of connection that we have in work like this. Look at our own government. Well, look at how many people's politicians' sons end up going into politics, and how many people's politicians' wives are married to each other and stuff like that. They're all in the business. It's all connected, and they really shouldn't be, should they? Maybe that's the point of this film. I'm not really sure, but I do recommend giving this film a watch. Hour-and-a-half film, and it's a really good, tightly well-written film. Black Bag, check it out on Peacock.